What's up, everybody? I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek. Welcome to Pretty Dece, your daily entertainment and pop culture show. Today on the show, we're going to jump into the world of digital card games because Hearthstone's next expansion was previewed today. That expansion seems like a really fun one. It's called the Boomsday project. It comes out August 7th. It features 135 new cards, and it revolves around Dr. Boom and his mad scientist friends. There's a lot of mechs there. It seems like a really fun, playful setting for an expansion. And of course, as with any new Hearthstone expansion, it comes with some new mechanics. So the first big thing is there are class-based legendary spells now with ridiculously powerful effects. So much like you had legendary minions before, which were creatures that were super powerful and you could only have one of in your deck. So they were unique, kind of standalone. They were these big, crazy things you would build decks around. Now there are spells that do the same thing, one of in your deck, and these big, huge, powerful, crazy effects that are going to be very sought after. Seems very cool. They're also adding a few new kind of general card types. There's project spells, which are cards that have symmetrical effects for both players, such as both players gain 2 mana crystals. So obviously, in that case, you would build your deck around the idea that that's going to benefit you more than it does your opponent, despite the fact that it's giving you and your opponent the exact same thing. And of course, then we have Omega cards. These are cards that give bonus effects if you wait to play them until you have 10 mana crystals, so until you've maxed out your mana. That's really cool. I think that's a really neat effect, a neat kind of flexible ability. And then finally, they're adding the magnetic keyword, and this applies specifically to mech minions and lets them kind of combine. So they're magnetic, they stick together, and it seems as if that means they're going to combine their health and attack and all that, and abilities as well. So not sure exactly what the details of that are going to be in terms of playing those cards, but you're going to stick 2 mechs together in what is probably a fun and ridiculous way. Now, they previewed some of these new cards with the announcement of this expansion. We'll see more kind of as we get closer to the release of this set. There's a few already just from today that I'm very excited about. The first is the legendary spell that we talked about. It costs 5 mana, and it lets you draw the rest of your deck. So obviously, as you can see, these spells are going to have some really ridiculous, just game warping effects. You go from, having a normal hand of cards to the rest of your deck in your hand. Obviously, when you cast this, you're going to want to try to win the game pretty soon because you're going to start taking damage after that point when you can draw no more cards from your deck. So that's definitely a build-around card. That's not a card you're going to throw into every deck that you have, but it seems like a really fun one to try to figure out how to break and figure out how to kind of play into maximizing that effect. Omega cards also seem very, very exciting to me. I love cards in card games where the cards can work both in the early game and then also have big payoffs if you play them in the late game. I like it when a card can kind of change forms over the course of a game. With these cards, you can cast them like normal minions and just get the normal creature, or you can wait until later in the game and then get some massive payoff when you have 10 mana crystals. These effects are going to be things like gain plus 10 attack. So when you're dropping that particular creature, way late in the game, it's going to be this juggernaut that the opponent is going to have to answer or lose the game. It's going to be massive, big effects. This is very similar to the kicker mechanic in Magic, where you can pay extra mana to get a bigger effect for your spells, or just pay the base price to get a smaller version of the same effect. I love those things in Magic, and I really love the concept here in Hearthstone. It adds a lot of strategy while also at the same time adding versatility to the cards that you add to your deck. Now, of course, the best part about Hearthstone expansions lately is that in the past, they used to do Hearthstone expansions, and then they would do a single-player expansion, and now they've combined that concept into one. So with every Hearthstone expansion, we also get a new single-player adventure to go with it. So far we've seen dungeon crawls and kind of playing against bosses. This version comes out 2 weeks after the release of the set. It is going to focus on puzzle mechanics. It's called Puzzle Lab. And it's going to have several different types of puzzles that you can tackle, all revolving around the game of Hearthstone. There will be lethal puzzles where you have to find a winning play, and then there will be survival puzzles where basically you have to win while kind of staying alive against these overwhelming odds. So I really like that idea. They're going to present you with a game in progress, a board state, and you have to kind of like track out what to do and how to handle things and kind of how to do your effects. That's a really, really fun thing to do. People have made things like that for Magic as well, where they show you a board and say, win this turn. And I always find those really fascinating to work out. You can kind of sit there and just like you're, doing a crossword, you can kind of puzzle out what's going on. So really excited to get into the Puzzle Lab, and I really like that as a kind of a different addition than the dungeon crawls that we've seen before. I think that's really cool. Now, as always, they're going to do pre-order bonuses and bundles for this expansion. They're doing 2 this time, so you can get 50 packs for $50. That's the normal one. That gets you a free legendary and a card back. Or you can bump that up to 80 packs for $80. That gets you the card back, but it also gets you an alternate Warlock hero, Mecha Jiraxis. So if you really care about collecting all the heroes and you want that extra, pack numbers, that might be the one to go with. As always, if you log into Hearthstone during the launch event, you get a free random class legendary, and they'll also throw a few packs of the Boomsday project your way. So if you're like me, you're still, invested in Hearthstone, you're excited about all these new releases, this one looks really awesome. I'm really pumped about seeing the rest of the cards as they start spoiling them, and can't wait until it comes out August 7th. So that's going to do it for Pretty Dece for today. Thank you very much for joining me to talk about the Boomsday project. If you like this show and you want to see more, new episodes of Pretty Dece premiere weekdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/PrettyDeceShow. You can also check out the daily episodes on the podcast feed and the YouTube channel, which you can find at prettydeceshow.com/video. Finally, catch me on Facebook and Twitter at Pretty Dece Show.